In a small coastal town, life moved at its own pace. The salty breeze carried stories of fishermen heading out to sea and families enjoying weekends by the water. For one woman, who we'll call the mom, this place wasn't just home. It was where she fought for her dreams against all odds. This mom wasn't your typical resident of the town. She worked 2 jobs. During the day, she crunched numbers as an accountant, and late at night you could find her cleaning offices to make ends meet. Despite her busy schedule, she always found time for her 2 young boys. They were her world, and everything she did was for them. But deep down she had a dream, a big one. It wasn't about fancy cars or luxurious vacations. It was something simpler yet extraordinary. She wanted to own a yacht. Now, owning a yacht might sound like a far-fetched idea for someone in her position. And truthfully, it was. Most people around her laughed when they heard about her goal. Yachts are for rich folks, they'd say. You've got enough on your plate already. But the mom didn't care what others thought. She believed that with hard work anything was possible. Years passed, and slowly but surely she saved every penny she could spare. Birthday gifts, put into savings, bonuses from work, straight into the fund, even loose change found under couch. Cushions made its way into her growing stash. Her determination never wavered even when times got tough. Late nights, early mornings, skipped meals. None of it mattered compared to the picture she held in her mind. Herself and her boys sailing, freely across the ocean, leaving their worries behind. Finally, after years of sacrifice, the day came. She walked into a boatyard, heart pounding with excitement and nerves, and purchased her very first yacht. It wasn't some massive luxury vessel. It was modest, practical, and perfect for her family. She named it Sea Whisperer, because whenever she looked at it, she felt like the waves themselves were cheering her on. But owning a yacht wasn't without challenges. In fact, the biggest challenge wasn't financial, it was social. You see, the marina where she docked her yacht wasn't exactly welcoming to newcomers, especially ones who didn't fit the mold of the wealthy elite. From the moment she arrived, she noticed sideways glances and hushed whispers. People muttered things like, "What's she doing here?" Or, "Does she even know how to sail?" At first, she tried to brush it off. After all, she hadn't come this far to let rude comments bring her down. But then one evening, something happened that changed everything. The marina was hosting a private event, an exclusive gathering for members only. Hoping to break the ice and maybe prove herself, she decided to attend. She dressed up, put on her best smile, and headed to the docks. As she approached, the dockmaster stepped forward, blocking her path. His tone was cold and dismissive. "Sorry, ma'am," he said, barely looking at her. "This is members only. You're not on the list." For a moment, she stood there frozen, humiliation washing over her. Around her, other guests pretended not to notice, though she could feel their judgmental stares burning into her skin. She wanted to argue, to demand fairness, but instead, she turned around and left. That night, as she sat alone on Sea Whisperer, staring out at the dark water, she made a silent promise to herself. This wouldn't be the end. It would be the beginning. What she didn't realize then was that this rejection would spark a journey bigger than anything she'd ever imagined. Little did she know, the people who doubted her would soon regret underestimating her strength and resolve. The rejection at the marina didn't just sting, it burned. For days afterward, the mom replayed the scene in her mind. The dismissive tone of the dockmaster, the cold stares from the other guests, and the sinking feeling in her chest when she realized she wasn't welcome. But instead of letting bitterness take over, she did something surprising. She channeled that pain into purpose. At first, she tried to ignore it. She told herself it wasn't worth the trouble. Why bother, she thought. They don't want me there anyway. But deep down, she knew she couldn't let it go. This wasn't just about being excluded from a party. It was about fairness. She had worked hard for every inch of progress in her life, and no one, not some snobby marina crowd, was going to tell her she didn't belong. So, she decided to fight back. but not with anger or revenge. Instead, she armed herself with knowledge. She started researching maritime laws, reading up on regulations about public access to waterways, and looking into how private marinas operated. To her surprise, she discovered some interesting loopholes. It turned out that while marinas could enforce certain rules, they couldn't outright discriminate against someone based on their background or income level. That gave her an idea. She reached out to a lawyer who specialized in discrimination cases. At first, the lawyer was skeptical. "Do you really want to go through with this?" he asked. "These places have deep pockets, and fights like this can drag on for years." But the mom was undeterred. She explained her situation calmly but firmly, showing him the notes she'd taken and the evidence she'd gathered. Slowly, the lawyer began to see her point. Together, they started building a case. While working on the legal side of things, the mom also focused on improving herself. If she wanted to prove she belonged on the water, she figured she needed to become the best sailor she could be. So, she signed up for sailing courses, hired instructors, and spent countless hours practicing on Sea Whisperer. She learned how to navigate using charts, tie complex knots, and handle tricky maneuvers in rough weather. Every time she mastered a new skill, she felt a little more confident and a little less intimidated by the so-called elite yacht owners. But fighting back wasn't easy. The marina seemed determined to make her life difficult. They started imposing ridiculous fees for docking her yacht, claiming she owed money for services she never used. When she questioned them, they shrugged it off, saying it was standard procedure. Then came the restrictions, rules about when she could use the facilities, where she could park her car, even how long she could stay on the property. It was clear they were trying to push her out. Still, she refused to give up. Instead of caving to their pressure, she anchored Sea Whisperer just outside the marina's jurisdiction. From there, she turned her yacht into something more than just a personal escape. It became a symbol of hope and inclusion. She began inviting local kids from underprivileged families to come aboard and learn about sailing. Many of these children had never set foot on a boat before, let alone imagine themselves sailing across open waters. Watching their faces light up as they took the wheel or felt the wind in their hair filled her with a sense of pride she hadn't felt in years. Word spread quickly about what she was doing. Parents in the community started thanking her, telling her how much it meant to their kids to experience something so special. Even some of the marina staff, who weren't part of the elite group, quietly admired her determination. One dock worker even slipped her a note one day, warning her about upcoming changes the marina planned to implement that might affect her case. It was a small gesture, but it showed her she wasn't entirely alone. Her efforts eventually caught the attention of a local journalist. The reporter, curious about the buzz surrounding the mom and her yacht, came to interview her. Sitting on the deck of Sea Whisperer, the mom shared her story openly, the struggles, the discrimination, and her dream of making the water accessible to everyone. The resulting article painted her as a hero, someone who refused to be silenced or pushed aside. When the piece went live, it blew up online. People from all over the country sent messages of support, sharing their own stories of being excluded or treated unfairly. For the first time, the marina elites began to feel uneasy. Their carefully constructed world of privilege and exclusivity was starting to crack. And the mom? She stood tall, knowing she was doing the right thing, not just for herself, but for anyone who'd ever been made to feel small. Her journey was far from over, but she was ready for whatever came next. The mom's fight against the marina wasn't just about her anymore. It had grown into something much bigger. Her story had spread like wildfire, thanks to the article written by the local journalist. People everywhere were talking about her courage and determination. Some called her a trailblazer, others simply admired her grit. But not everyone was happy about it. The marina owners and their inner circle, the ones who had always acted like they owned the ocean, were furious. They saw her as a threat, someone who dared to challenge their way of life. At first, they tried to laugh it off. "She'll never win," they whispered among themselves. "We've got lawyers, connections, and money on our side. What does she have, a boat and a dream?" But the mom didn't need to hear their whispers to know what they thought of her. She could see it in the way they avoided eye contact when she passed by, or how they suddenly became too busy to answer questions from reporters sniffing around the marina. Their arrogance only fueled her resolve. If anything, their dismissive attitude made her work even harder. One of the first things she did was organize free sailing lessons for kids from low-income families. Word traveled fast in the small coastal town, and soon parents were lining up to sign their children up for the program. For many of these kids, stepping onto a yacht was a completely foreign experience. Some had never even been close to the water before. Watching their faces light up as they learned to steer the boat or tie knots gave the mom a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. She also invited adults to join her sessions, particularly women who might feel intimidated by the male-dominated boating world. She taught them basic skills, shared stories of her own struggles, and encouraged them to believe in themselves. Slowly but surely, a community began to form around Sea Whisperer. It wasn't just about sailing anymore. It was about breaking barriers and proving that anyone could belong on the water, regardless of their background. Her efforts weren't without challenges, though. The marina tried everything they could to shut her down. They claimed she was violating safety regulations even though her yacht was perfectly compliant. They accused her of causing disturbances, despite the fact that her programs were peaceful and well-organized. One day they even sent a letter threatening legal action if she didn't stop operating outside their boundaries. But the mom didn't back down. Instead, she turned their attempts to silence her into opportunities to shine. She documented every interaction, every unfair fee, every baseless accusation, every snide comment, and added it to the growing pile of evidence supporting her case. With each new piece of proof, her lawyer grew more confident that they could take the marina to court and win. What really shifted the tide, however, was the support she received from unexpected places. Dock workers who had initially kept their distance started speaking out. One of them revealed that the marina had a long history of discriminatory practices, targeting people based on their income or social status. Another worker admitted that he'd been pressured to lie about maintenance issues on boats owned by undesirable members. These revelations strengthened her case and gave her team ammunition to fight back. Meanwhile, the mom continued to use her platform to inspire others. She started sharing videos online of her sailing lessons, showing how accessible and fun boating could be. In one video, a shy young boy named Tommy took the wheel for the first time. His face lit up with excitement as he steered the yacht through gentle waves. "I'm driving," he shouted, laughing so hard his eyes watered. The video went viral, racking up thousands of views and comments from people cheering him on. The attention brought both blessings and burdens. On one hand, donations poured in from supporters across the country. Strangers sent money to help cover legal fees, while local businesses offered discounts on supplies and equipment. A nearby surf shop even donated wetsuits for the kids in her program. The outpouring of kindness reminded her that she wasn't alone in this fight. On the other hand, the spotlight attracted criticism too. Some people accused her of seeking fame or using her situation to gain sympathy. Others dismissed her efforts as pointless, claiming she was wasting her time fighting a losing battle. Even some of her neighbors, who had once been friendly, began avoiding her, worried that associating with her would bring trouble. Despite the negativity, she stayed focused on her mission. Every morning she woke up early, brewed a cup of coffee, and sat on the deck of Sea Whisperer, watching the sunrise. Those quiet moments gave her strength, reminding her why she had started this journey in the first place. It wasn't about revenge or proving a point. It was about creating a world where no one felt excluded because of where they came from or how much money they had. As weeks turned into months, the tension between her and the marina reached a boiling point. Rumors swirled that they were planning to ban her from anchoring near their property altogether. But instead of panicking, she smiled. She knew they were scared, not of her, but of what she represented. Change. Change was coming, whether they liked it or not. And when it arrived, they'd have no choice but to regret underestimating her. The battle between the mom and the marina was heating up, and tensions were running high. The marina owners weren't used to being challenged, especially not by someone who didn't fit their image of a proper yacht owner. So, when they realized her lawsuit was gaining traction and that public opinion was swinging in her favor, they decided to fight back with everything they had. What followed was a game of cat and mouse, full of twists, turns, and moments that tested the mom's strength like never before. At first, the marina tried to hit her where it hurt, her wallet. They slapped her with ridiculous fees for docking privileges she hadn't even asked for, claiming she owed money for services she'd never used. Then came strange new rules, things like restricted hours for launching Sea Whisperer, or limits on how long she could stay anchored near the property. It felt like every time she turned around there was another obstacle in her path. But instead of letting it break her, she dug her heels in harder. She stopped using the marina altogether. Instead, she anchored Sea Whisperer just outside their jurisdiction, turning the yacht into a floating classroom and community hub. Word spread quickly about what she was doing, and soon people from all walks of life started showing up to learn, connect, and support her cause. Kids practiced tying knots on the deck while their parents chatted about how inspiring her story was. Even strangers passing by in smaller boats would wave and shout words of encouragement. But staying afloat wasn't easy. Every day brought fresh challenges. Some nights she lay awake worrying about how much longer she could keep fighting without burning out. Other times, doubt crept in. Was she really making a difference? Or was she just tilting at windmills, trying to take down an institution that had been around far longer than she had? Her kids noticed the toll it was taking on her. One evening, as she sat on the dock eating dinner with her two boys, one of them looked up and said, "Mom, are you sure this is worth it? You work so hard already." His voice was soft but filled with concern. For a moment she hesitated. How could she explain to him why this mattered so much, not just for her, but for everyone who deserved a fair shot? "I know it's hard," she finally replied, placing a hand on his shoulder. "But sometimes you have to stand up for what's right, even if it's scary. If I don't do this now, who will?" Her words seemed to sink in, though neither boy fully understood the weight of what she was saying. Still, seeing their mom fight with such determination made them proud. They began pitching in however they could, helping clean the yacht after lessons or handing out snacks to the kids who came aboard. Their support meant the world to her, even on days when everything else felt overwhelming. As the legal battle dragged on, cracks began to form within the marina's polished facade. Dock workers, tired of being complicit in unfair practices, started speaking out. One of them approached her late one afternoon, glancing nervously over his shoulder before handing her a folder stuffed with documents. Inside were emails and memos detailing years of discriminatory behavior, from denying membership applications based on income to charging exorbitant fees to those they deemed unworthy. "This isn't right," he muttered, avoiding her gaze. "I've seen enough. You should have this." Her heart swelled with gratitude. She knew how risky it was for him to share this information, and she promised to protect his identity no matter what. With these new documents in hand, her lawyer grew more confident than ever. They now had undeniable proof that the marina's actions went beyond simple snobbery. They were systematically excluding people based on class and background. The tide of public opinion continued to shift in her favor. Local news outlets picked up the story again, highlighting the growing divide between the mom and the marina. Reporters interviewed former marina members who admitted they'd faced similar mistreatment. One woman tearfully recounted how she'd been pressured to sell her boat after complaining about unequal treatment. Another man described being mocked for driving an older model yacht, despite paying the same dues as everyone else. Even some of the marina's longtime supporters began questioning whether they wanted to be associated with such blatant discrimination. A few quietly withdrew their memberships, citing ethical concerns. Others distanced themselves publicly, issuing statements condemning the marina's behavior. For the first time, the elite group found themselves on shaky ground. Despite the mounting pressure, the mom remained steadfast. She continued hosting sailing lessons and workshops, determined to show the world that boating wasn't just for the wealthy. Her programs became so popular that local businesses stepped up to help. A surf shop donated wetsuits and life jackets for the kids. A cafe provided free snacks during events. Even a retired sailor volunteered to teach advanced navigation skills. One particularly memorable day, a young girl named Lily took the wheel for the first time. Nervous at first, she gripped the controls tightly, her knuckles white. But as the yacht glided smoothly across the water, her fear melted away, replaced by pure joy. "I'm doing it," she exclaimed, giggling uncontrollably. Her mother stood nearby, tears streaming down her face as she watched her daughter experience something she'd never dreamed possible. That moment reminded the mom of why she'd started this journey in the first place. It wasn't about revenge or proving a point. It was about giving people a chance to dream bigger, to see themselves in places they'd been told they didn't belong. And as she looked around at the smiling faces on board Sea Whisperer, she knew she was exactly where she was meant to be. But the fight wasn't over yet. The marina still refused to back down, and the court date loomed closer with each passing day. The mom braced herself for whatever came next, knowing that the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Yet with every challenge she faced, she grew stronger and more determined to prove that change was possible. The courtroom was quiet save for the rhythmic tapping of the judge's pen against the desk. The mom sat at the plaintiff's table, her hands clasped tightly together. She wasn't used to being in such formal settings. Her world revolved around waves, ropes, and open skies. But today, she felt ready. Months of preparation had led to this moment, and despite the nerves bubbling inside her, she knew she had justice on her side. Across the aisle, the marina's lawyers looked confident. They were dressed in sharp suits, their faces calm but smug, as if they believed no court could possibly rule against them. After all, they'd spent years operating with impunity, convinced that their wealth and influence would shield them from consequences. But the mom wasn't intimidated. She glanced at her own lawyer, who gave her a reassuring nod. Together, they had built a solid case, backed by evidence, witnesses, and an overwhelming amount of public support. When it was time for her to speak, the mom stood slowly. Her voice trembled at first, but as she began sharing her story, it grew steadier. She talked about the sacrifices she'd made to buy Sea Whisperer, the dreams she'd nurtured for her children, and the humiliation she'd felt when she was turned away from the marina's event. She described how the marina had tried to push her out through unfair fees and restrictions, treating her like she didn't belong simply because she wasn't part of their exclusive club. "I'm not here just for myself," she said, looking directly at the judge. "I'm here for every person who's ever been told they don't deserve a place because of where they come from or how much money they have. This isn't just about a yacht or a marina. It's about fairness." Her words resonated in the courtroom. Even some of the marina's representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. When her lawyer presented the documents provided by the dock worker, the emails and memos detailing discriminatory practices, the room fell silent. It was clear that the marina hadn't expected these revelations to surface. For the first time, they seemed unsure of themselves. After hours of arguments, cross-examinations, and deliberations, the verdict came. The marina was guilty of discriminatory practices. The judge ordered them to pay damages and implement immediate changes to ensure inclusivity moving forward. Cheers erupted outside the courthouse, where supporters had gathered to show solidarity. Reporters scrambled to capture reactions, and the mom found herself surrounded by well-wishers offering hugs and congratulations. But winning the lawsuit wasn't the end of her journey. It was only the beginning. With the legal battle behind her, she turned her focus back to what truly mattered, making boating accessible to everyone. She officially launched Open Waters, a non-profit organization dedicated to providing affordable sailing opportunities for underprivileged communities. Donations poured in from across the country, fueled by the viral attention her story had received. Local businesses continued to pitch in, offering discounts on supplies and volunteering their time to help run programs. One of the most exciting developments was the expansion of her sailing lessons. What had started as small weekend sessions grew into a full-fledged program complete with certifications. Kids learned everything from basic navigation to advanced seamanship, earning skills that could last a lifetime. Parents watched proudly as their children gained confidence, discovering abilities they never knew they had. One boy, who initially struggled with self-doubt, surprised everyone by mastering complex maneuvers within weeks. "I want to be a captain someday," he declared, his eyes shining with determination. Adults joined in too, many of whom had always dreamed of sailing but assumed it was out of reach. Some took the lessons to bond with their families, while others saw it as a way to escape the stress of daily life. A single father once told her, "This is the first time I've felt peace in years. Being out here, away from everything, it reminds me there's still beauty in the world." As word spread about open waters, the mom became a symbol of resilience and hope. Invitations to speak at events rolled in, and she accepted a few, using the platform to encourage others to stand up for what they believed in. "Change starts with one person," she often said. "If you see something wrong, don't wait for someone else to fix it. Be the one to step forward." Yet despite her growing fame, she remained grounded. Her priority was still her family, and she made sure to spend quality time with her boys, even amidst her busy schedule. They loved hearing stories about the people she helped and sometimes tagged along to events, cheering her on from the sidelines. Their pride in her accomplishments meant more to her than any award ever could. On the anniversary of the court ruling, she organized a special fundraiser aboard Sea Whisperer. The yacht, once a symbol of exclusion, now represented unity and possibility. Guests included former skeptics who had since become allies, kids who had grown up learning to sail under her guidance, and even a few former Marina members who admitted they had misjudged her. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, she addressed the crowd. "When I first bought this yacht, I never imagined it would lead me here," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "I thought it was just a dream, a way to give my boys a taste of adventure. But it turned into so much more. It taught me that we're stronger together, that kindness can overcome cruelty, and that no matter how hard things get, we should never stop believing in ourselves." Applause broke out, echoing across the water. For the mom, it was a moment of triumph. Not just for her, but for everyone who had stood by her side. The Marina's elite may have underestimated her, but they couldn't deny the impact she'd made. And as she sailed Sea Whisperer back to its mooring that night, she smiled, knowing she'd proven them wrong in the best possible way. Years passed, and the mom's story became more than just a tale of personal triumph. It turned into a legend. People in the coastal towns still talked about her fight against the Marina, the way she stood up to power and proved that inclusion mattered more than exclusivity. But what truly cemented her legacy wasn't the lawsuit or the headlines, it was the lives she touched along the way. Open Waters, the nonprofit she founded, flourished beyond anything she could have imagined. What started as a small program on Sea Whisperer grew into a nationwide movement. Other communities heard about her work and reached out, asking for advice on how to start similar initiatives. Within a few years, there were chapters of Open Waters in cities up and down the coast, each one offering affordable boating opportunities to people who might otherwise never experience life on the water. The yacht itself remained at the heart of it all. Though it had aged gracefully over the years, Sea Whisperer continued to serve as both a classroom and a symbol of hope. Its decks bore scratches and scuffs from countless lessons, but every mark told a story. A child learning to tie their first knot, an adult discovering the joy of steering through gentle waves, or a family bonding over shared adventures. The mom often joked that the yacht was like an old friend, always reliable and full of character. For the kids who grew up participating in her programs, Sea Whisperer became a second home. Many of them went on to pursue careers related to the sea, inspired by the skills they'd learned and the confidence she'd instilled in them. One former student, now a marine biologist, credited her with sparking his passion for ocean conservation. Another worked as a sailing instructor, teaching others the same techniques he'd mastered under her guidance. When asked about her influence, they all said the same thing. She showed us we belonged. Her own boys, now teenagers, often teased her about being the coolest mom ever. They loved recounting stories of her early days, how she cleaned offices late at night to save money, how she faced rejection without flinching, and how she transformed humiliation into purpose. To them, she wasn't just a parent. She was a hero. They admired her strength and determination, qualities they hoped to carry into their own lives. But perhaps the most remarkable part of her journey was the ripple effect it created. Her fight against the marina didn't just change policies, it changed mindsets. The once snobbish elite began to soften, realizing that diversity enriched their community rather than detracting from it. Some even joined forces with her, volunteering their time or resources to support open waters. Slowly but surely, the divide between us and them began to blur. Even the marina itself underwent a transformation. Once known for its exclusivity, it became a model of inclusivity, hosting outreach programs and offering scholarships to aspiring sailors. While the mom never returned as a member, she occasionally visited to speak at events or mentor young participants. Each time she stepped onto the dock, she felt a sense of pride, not because she'd won, but because she'd helped create something better. As the years rolled on, the mom found herself reflecting more often on where it all began. She remembered the nights she spent worrying if she'd made the right decision, the moments of doubt when the odds seemed insurmountable, and the quiet victories that kept her going. Looking back, she realized the hardest battles weren't fought in courtrooms or against powerful opponents. They were waged within herself. Every time she chose courage over fear, persistence over defeat, she grew stronger. One evening, as she sat alone on the deck of Sea Whisperer, watching the sun dip below the horizon, she thought about the future. Her boys were growing up fast, and soon they'd leave home to chase their own dreams. Open Waters was thriving, requiring less of her direct involvement. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine what came next. Maybe it's time to sail farther, she mused aloud, letting the words hang in the salty air. Not literally, at least not yet, but metaphorically. Perhaps there were new challenges to tackle, new barriers to break, or maybe, just maybe, it was enough to know she'd already done so much. Whatever lay ahead, one thing was certain. She'd left a lasting impact. Her story reminded people that fairness wasn't negotiable, that kindness could conquer cruelty, and that no dream was too big if you were willing to fight for it. And as long as Sea Whisperer floated on the water, her message would continue to spread. To anyone daring enough to believe in themselves and brave enough to challenge the status quo. That night, as the stars appeared one by one in the vast sky, above she smiled. She didn't need titles or trophies to feel accomplished. Her greatest reward was knowing she'd made a difference, not just for herself, but for everyone who ever doubted they belonged.